Hi everyone, welcome to my channel where I talk about movies, some recent Blu-ray releases, sometimes UHD. Today is a UHD. This is the 1976 film The Man Who Fell to Earth, starring David Bowie, directed by Nicolas Roeg. This is a Studio Canal release through a Best Buy exclusive steelbook. First steelbook I ever bought. And it does come with a slipcover that shows the man who fell to earth with his human eye, and then when you apologize for the glare, and then you see him with his alien eye. And it's very attractive artwork. This is the back, and then the interior also has artwork on the two discs, the UHD, Blu-ray. Blu-ray has all the supplements. So this is, I watched this in Dolby Vision. Anybody who watches my channel knows that I love Dolby Vision. And it looked fantastic. And the seductive power of Nicolas Roeg's imagery in all his films really plays well with Dolby Vision. It has like a hypnotic power to it. He and his director of photography here, Tony Richmond, it was filmed in New Mexico, the land of enchantment. So we get all kinds of, they actually traveled like a circus all through New Mexico, finding different locations that would suit the scenes that they were filming. And the story is about an alien called Thomas Newton. In his human form, we see him arrive on Earth. He comes to Earth deliberately. He comes from a much more advanced planet that has been ravaged by climate change 50 years ago. Climate change, they have no water left. So they have very few inhabitants left, but the alien that falls to Earth does have a family left, a wife and two children. He's coming to Earth on a small spaceship. He wants to build other spaceships to go back to his planet and bring them to Earth. But he needs money. He arrives with all kinds of metallic gems that he can, as a starting point for the money he wants to accumulate. He needs to accumulate. But he also they're scientifically advanced. He comes with scientific formulas in order to get patents and develop new products that will grant him the fortune that he needs to return to his home planet and rescue whoever is left there. Now, this movie is based on a novel by Walter Tevis, and I read it a few years ago. I highly recommend that novel. Tevis only wrote 6 novels. 2 others, The Hustler and The Color of Money, the sequel, were based on his novels. The Queen's Gambit, another of his novels, was adapted into a TV miniseries a couple of years ago with Anya Taylor-Joy. And the novel is more political than the movie, but in different in other ways as well. But I think it really does stick to the basic spirit of the movie, of the novel, in the sense of alienation that Bowie's character feels as when he comes to Earth. He's not constitutionally fit for our climate, so he's frail. He has to drink lots of water, and there's autobiographical elements in Tevis's book, because when he was a child, he had some physical infirmities that forced him to be hospitalized. And while he was in hospital, this was in San Francisco, and his parents went to rural Kentucky to start a new life. And as soon as he was able, he was brought to Kentucky, frail, and felt like a stranger in a strange land in rural Kentucky compared to San Francisco. So it draws on that. It also autobiographically, so it draws on Tevis's alcoholism, because The Man Who Fell to Earth is a story about alcoholism. It's certainly both explicitly and rather metaphorically as well. Alcohol being the escape from this sense of alienation. But it also the book is and the movie in particular draws on the power of corporatization. So when he has patents and these new products of sort of a new startup company, the bigger, wider corporate world is ready to gobble that up. And so in 1976, climate change is prescient, also the corporatization of America. But also there is a theme of sensory overload. So they were able, in the home planet, they were able to see American TV. They pick up the waves. And so they know a little bit about America. But when Thomas Newton is on Earth and things don't move quick enough, he gets sad, and he finds consolation in television. So he'll sit in his apartment with 10 or 12 television sets going on at the same time, all different kind of programs. We get a little snippet of Love in the Afternoon with Audrey Hepburn and Gary Cooper. A real good piece from The Third Man with zither music. So. And here again, you could see this as being rather prescient in our addiction to looking at screens all the time. Despite, in addition to all these rather prescient themes and very intriguing themes, this film is really about the casting of David Bowie as Thomas Newton, the man who fell to Earth. This was Bowie's first film. He didn't know, he had no idea what being an actor or a film set was like. He got along very well with the director, Nicolas Roeg. It took some persuasion to get him to do it. He's very professional, learned his lines. He did everything that Roeg told him to do. According to Candy Clark, they basically filmed the script. When you look at the movie, you say the script was actually written by that, but evidently it was. And because of the kind of fractured editing. But he brings this stillness. He brings he doesn't have to act to seem otherworldly. He's so good looking, but good looking in a very unique way, very charismatic way. You can't take your eyes off him. And Candy Clark mentions that in the supplements, in her interview in the supplements, that she was just mesmerized by his looks, but he was very good with her as far as Nicolas Roeg didn't like rehearsing, so the two of them would go off. They make sure they knew their lines, how they wanted to play play the part, so that they were ready when filming began. Because Nicolas Roeg worked very fast. This was not a high budget movie. Doesn't look like it. There's three other actors, prominent actors in the film. Candy Clark, I mentioned, she was coming off her Academy Award nomination for American Graffiti a couple of years before. She's a working class. She comes from the working class, but she's very kind to him when Bowie has what appears to be fainting spells, because he simply is. It's so difficult for him to adjust to the environment of Earth. And then Buck Henry, normally a comic actor, and there's comic elements to his character here to be sure, plays a patent lawyer who Thomas Newton comes to run the company, eventually to run the company. And how much money can we make? It's never going to be enough. Is it going to be enough? And then there is a college professor played by Rip Torn, a professor of science that has drawn Newton's attention. He's sort of we see him on campus. He's kind of burnt out. So he finds this consolation in a steady stream of co-eds, taking them to bed in some very elaborate sexual hijinks games. As far as Nicolas Roeg's career goes, he had made, his first film was co-directed with Donald Cameron, with a performance where he works with another rock star, Mick Jagger, and then he had Walkabout, estimable success, as well as then Don't Look Now with Julie Christie and Donald Sutherland. And then he would, after this film, he would make Bad Timing. All of these films are very much part of the 70s. I think Roeg really, after the 70s, he sort of lost his way, or the times were changing. So he had a fractured storytelling. He had been an editor, but mostly a director of photography. And this kind of fractured storytelling went back to Richard Lester's Petulia, where he served as a director of photography, which was kind of revolutionary, at least as far as commercial filmmaking goes. And Roeg really, this film took 9 months to edit. So he really, he really developed this kind of storytelling, which might frustrate people who are more literal and they want everything explained, and see incongruities within the plot. But I think he really developed this style very well. But he was also, as far as the 1970s go, he was a very transgressive filmmaker. So the sex scene between Christie and Julie Christie and Donald Sutherland, Don't Look Now, which brought a lot of attention, he sort of amps up that. There's lots of nudity here. There's lots of sex scenes, nudity both male and female, I might add. But they look odd today. And Candy Clark in her interview said that you couldn't do this stuff today, but in the 1970s, it was all thought to be cutting edge because they were the movies and society in general were coming out of the conformity, the repressive conformity of the world before 1969, and the year when everything changed. Ultimately, though, I think this is a film that touches me on a level of its depiction, of resignation, of big dreams that get diminished, and how do you find consolation? The sense of aloneness. This was evidently a theme very near to Walter Tevis as well. And I think that Bowie really brings that across. I mean, this is just a marvelous. I don't know if you could call it a performance. It's more or less a presence, and perfectly suited for this film. Now, the supplements here mostly consist of a whole bunch of interviews with Nicolas Roeg, Candy Clark, many of the people who worked on the film. Not David Bowie. Nicolas Roeg is not the greatest interview. He tends to mumble. He tells the story. He tends to tell stories that don't really answer the question very forthrightly as far as his intentions in the movie. Now there was a commentary on previous releases. There is no commentary here, but we do get. One of the interviews that I really recommend you seeing after you watch the film is the one with the screenwriter, Paul Mayersberg. He really is about 20, 25 minutes perhaps, and he really goes into the difference between the novel and the book and what they were trying to express, how the screenplay developed closely with Nicolas Roeg. It was a 50-50 collaboration, he says. And they had worked together on 2 projects that were never made. But this was the first screenplay that Paul Mayersberg ever had made. He had written, I think he said, 38 other screenplays before he finally got a movie that was produced. And he would go on to write for Roeg again. In fact, I think after Bad Timing, there's a very interesting film called Eureka that I don't even think got released in the U.S. It was on VHS at least, with Gene Hackman. I would love to see that film come on Blu-ray, to see how I look at it now. If you think that Don't Look Now is fractured and hard to understand, Eureka is even more so. So overall, if you're a Bowie fan, I mean, this is a no-brainer because this is probably the greatest film role that Bowie would play. If you're a fan of Nicolas Roeg, If you're a fan of 1970s transgressive cinema, this is one to get. Okay, thanks a lot for everybody who managed to listen. I do appreciate it. Comments are always welcome. Take care.